Well, howdy. It is Sunday, June 23rd at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And I am joined by all these fine folks who are, I'm going to switch my view just so you can see everybody, uh, who are totally wasting their time instead of, doing something you should be doing on a Sunday. They're hanging out with other pale people who stay indoors too much. Um, So with that, we don't actually have any kind of agenda today. But hey, Joe, are you ready to make that thing happen again? You're going to need to turn your mic on, Joe. So Joe spent a few hours. I'm going to spotlight you, Joe. A few hours fiddling with this.
Welcome to the Timex Sinclair
If you didn't catch that, that was a ancient General Instruments SPO 256 speech synthesizer saying, "Welcome to the Timex user computer group." Is that what it said, Joe?
Timex Sinclair
Okay.
online computer group, or user group. Sorry. Yeah, it's kind of hard to understand, but this is what I can do.
Well, that was one you had to always listen to really closely and say, just to make sure you got exactly what it was saying. And it was always very difficult to program.
Not exactly Siri.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, Joe, that was which speech synthesizer unit?
The let me look again so I make sure I went. The William Stuart Systems.
Okay. And that was
mostly in England.
Yeah.
UK area. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember who imported those things, but somebody imported those things. And there's another module that goes with it. I think it's called the big ears. Yes, this speech recognition module.
Guys like one word at a time or something like that. But I haven't even started playing with that.
On an 81 or 1000, you'd be lucky to get one word. It might be maybe through spectral analysis or something, not through actually listening to the words. So anybody want to jump in, chat about whatever, because I bring you nothing today.
Well, I do have my request that if anybody happens to have the Timex Sinclair 1000 software for the Zebra Systems Zebra Talker, I'd really like to get a copy of that, please. So I'll throw that out
there. Cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, Stuart's not here, but we could hope that he goes to his secret layer of reserves in Pennsylvania to see if he has such a thing.
And then also in news, I finished the cartridge for the 1510 reconstruction.
Yeah.
Share that out with you.
Now, you took the thing that Carl shared with us,
right?
The schematic, and then you redid the sort of the baseboard part, right?
Right.
With surface mount.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And just basically to make the casing for that a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed, I don't know, in one of the meetings a while back, didn't want to do a surface mount on the cartridge itself to make it easier for folks to program it, because you can do it with one of the little TL866. And so I just set it up for a normal like 512, so 32K or 4 8K chunks, right? So it fits in that 8 to 16K boundary, just like the original one did, with some switches to select which one of the images you want. And I'm going to redesign the case so it's similar to the one that we did for the 2068.
Oh, but you don't have to worry about thickness with the 1510 cartridge.
Right. So the 1510 cartridge can be thicker up top, so that's
Yeah.
room for switches. It's room for the chip to be there, and to make it so that you could easily like take a cover off, pop the chip out, and reprogram it, snap it back together, and go. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
That's the idea. But yeah, I shared that with you and Carl, I think. So
Okay. Okay.
And if anybody else wants to take a look at it, hit me up.
And you're doing this in Easy EDA.
Exactly. So
The circuit design. Okay.
wrapping my head around that piece of software.
Yeah.
Slightly frustrating because
Well, yeah.
you have to unlearn everything you know and start from scratch.
Yeah, CAD is that way, you know.
I can't find anything. I know how to do it. I just can't get it to do what I want. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Typical engineering stuff, right?
I hear you. Cool. So have you actually ordered the PCBs?
No, I wanted other folks to put eyes on it and say, yeah, this kind of looks like what it ought to look like, and this is what I was after. Especially Carl, because he's the one that's really wanting the reconstruction to be similar to the original.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'd like him to take a look at it and see if that's what he was after, if that's gonna scratch that itch. So.
And are you going to try to make the case somewhat similar to the original case?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh wow, wow.
So it looks similar. It won't be exactly the same, but it'll be similar enough that it'll look like one. And then I can print it in that. Well, I have one here, the silver plastic, like I do these.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll look kind of quasi original.
That reminds me. How are you and Jeff working on that other expansion slot with the slightly more room between the cards?
I haven't heard anything. Jeff, where are we at?
I don't think Jeff's here.
I thought he was here.
Oh, no, that's a different Jeff. That's Jeff K.
Yeah, I thought there was. Oh,
No, you're thinking of Jeff B.
Yeah, no, I thought Girl was on here, but I guess not.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. No,
Okay.
he's not on here. All right.
Okay.
I can't see everybody at once the way I have it set up.
Well, you can open the participant list, which is at the bottom of the screen.
But that's not how I have it set up. That would require change. And
oh my God, don't get me started.
I'm still using a Timex Sinclair 1000. Obviously, I'm not into change, right?
It's just, oh, Gustavo's, yeah, we have this this sort of hardware, you know. I mean, in the original world of user group meetings, you would have, you know, your main user group meeting, right? And then you might have special interest groups meeting either at the same time or, you know, off days or whatever. And like more than a year ago or so, I started hosting this Wednesday night meeting for Ricardo and Gustavo and some of the other guys working on the TS Pico project. And now that it has you know, sort of gotten to a point where it's not taking up all of the meeting time, I harkened back to a survey I did a long time ago with you guys and asked, you know, what might you want to do besides this. And some folks said, you know, hey, it'd be cool to have a hardware special interest group meeting. So Wednesdays is going to become that. Anyway, all of which is to say, we were talking to Gustavo on this past Wednesday, I think, and Gustavo asked me and Joe, you know, why we would even be remotely interested in the 1000, because Gustavo has started on the 2068, and you know, yes, the 1000 is a very limited machine. I think the short answer, Joe, was that we're masochists.
No, it's a challenge. You know, the mountain's there to climb in, and trying to shoehorn software into a tiny little machine with limited amount of RAM, and yeah, it was always a challenge to get it to do more.
Tim's a similar
For
masochist.
me, so what I like about programming the ZX81 over the 126 is I don't have to worry about design. If I'm doing something like, oh, what color do I use? Can I use user-defined graphics? No, none of that. So it's all simple as far as just black and white, and work with that. I don't have to work all this fancy color. How does this look? How does it look? Because that's a lot of work.
But Tim, you also use
All those colors, all those pixels.
right, all those pixels. You've also used Z88 DK, right, to write some code for the 1000.
Yeah.
So I mean, isn't that a little bit of overkill to write in C that then compiles to the 1000?
Says the
No,
man
not
that's
so.
working on a Pico board for his 2068, right? So the Pico is much more powerful than 2068. Sorry.
Why don't you just run the emulator?
Yeah. That's no fun, but yeah.
Thank you, David, for
Well,
introduce my question at the group. It's good to see what's thinking the different people here.
Yeah, well, you guys, I think you told us that you didn't really get many 81s and 1000s. That was really the 2068 that came to Argentina.
Yes, of course. All
Okay.
the machines Timex arrived in Argentina, maybe with a delay in 3 or 4 months since the launch. We are very, very on track with the machine out of factory or the street date. Many people buy the computer in US and then back to Argentina. That is the fast way to get the system.
Yeah.
That's why, for example, my FDD3 system is sold by Zebra. I have the silver version and works fine till today. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I was being a little bit of a smart ass and saying masochist, but for me, I don't know, I was a young teenager when the 1000, I mean, I was tracking the 81, but it was still too expensive, right? Even at $150, it was still too expensive because my parents were in grad school at the time. But when the 81 came out, or the 1000 came out, that was affordable. And we had what other folks would call real computers available to us at school. We had like the Trash 80 and the Apple, and there was a computer lab that had all sorts of weird stuff. This IBM machine that ran APL, and a CompuColor machine, and a bunch of weird Commodore PETs and CBM machines. And I also managed to get access to the university mainframe. So I worked at sort of both ends of the spectrum. This giant 60-bit mainframe computer. I'm poking my little basic programs into it. But the same thing, I'd go home and type my little basic programs into my 1000. And like Joe said, I mean, part of the fun was learning how to do things to it. Like, the heatsink was too small.
Yes, of course.
Open it up, put a better heatsink on it.
No, in my case, the learning path was starting with the TI calculator with the target with the programming modules.
Was that like a 59 that you started with? The TI 59?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And also the printer after.
Yeah.
By the calculator, then I use the printer. And after that, I moved to the Sharp PC 5000.
Oh my gosh, really?
Basic computer, yes. And then one of my friends buy a Timex 1000 and started to programming with this.
Hold it up
no
again,
more
Ryan.
time. Yeah.
And
then after that, what is
Oh my
this?
God, it's on the phone.
Wow. Yes, exactly the size. It's the same calculator, great. And yeah, that was my school days, learning with the different equipment. And my select computer was 2068.
Wow.
I never buy any computer for home computer, no, but in the professional life, I use a CPM machine with 2 or 3 processors, till 24 terminals, NPM, different system on this year with the SCSI drives and big system. And after that, I moved to the PC space and then to the specific non-stop computer for HP.
Oh
I
wow.
worked the last time with the tandem, X-tandem computers. Yeah, I install and programming those machines.
Hmm.
I don't have any, except the AI. The rest of the computer was programming by me.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
that TI 59, one might consider it on par with a 81.
Yes, of course. Yes, I remember many engineer programs put on the calculator and works really good.
Yeah, it was a really good programming book for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That 59. That, gosh, I used to have a copy of it until not too long ago. Even though I never owned a TI 59, I had that how to program it book. It was really cool.
But I remember the Timex 1000 with the TV in black and white and press a key and not have many speed on typing. That's really, I put them nervous because yeah, the cassette is not so good, and also the information here in Argentina I receive on paper because the 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 specific publication or books or whatever are in paper, not in tape. And you need to type a lot of program to see what's happened after finish the entry.
Yeah.
So I had the successor to that too.
Oh, so hold on just a sec. That TI 66 looks a lot like the TI CC 40.
It was the same design language, but the
Okay.
CC40.
Oh, you've got one too?
No, I've got the what became of it, the 74.
The 74, yeah.
It's in the closet though, but it's a very big, wide thing. Yeah, that's what became of the CC40, because the
Yeah.
CC40 didn't really, I don't think it was really produced or long, but then they killed it, and then they borrowed a lot of the innards and stuff and changed the hex bus to a different connector, but it's the same thing. And that was the 74.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I've been writing some programs in my notebook for the 66 and 59.
So what's the relationship between the 66 and the 59? Oh my God. Yeah, I remember all those weird symbols.
I mean, well, the main difference is the 66 had letter mnemonics instead of just codes.
Okay.
On the 59, this would be a code instead of a mnemonic.
And what does that mean? I'm just curious.
It would just be a number of the.
No, I mean, what does that particular mnemonic mean?
Oh, that's exchange.
Okay.
Exchange memories is memory 0 with the display number.
Okay.
Or exchange memory 9 with the display number. You know, I can't read it backwards. Run stop.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting.
So that made it. I didn't use a 59, but that made programming much more tractable, I can tell you. But this was notoriously slow because they slowed it down. battery lasts forever as a consequence, but it's pokey. And if I finally found the resistor hack to make it go faster, but you can only make it go so fast before it starts giving junk answers. I think probably something to do with memory speed, I imagine, but that's been interesting.
That's really
but
cool.
it programs this, it uses the same programming language, keystrokes. It's all the same language basically as the 59.
Okay. Okay.
But I remember my last TI calculator is TI-86. Inside you have a C80 CPU.
Yeah,
graphic
those are Z80.
capability. Yeah, but I never programming yet. But I have the connect, the cable or whatever. But I never put my hands inside. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I was going to say about the 81. Aside from, and David, you could speak to this. Aside from the circuitry, obviously the video system primarily doing that lifting work. You know, a lot of the difference, well, aside from the color and the high-res access. Well, the high-res access, I don't know. I'd say like a lot of the difference is just that extra 8K ROM when you get down to it.
Yeah.
Which made me think, hey, you know, what would be interesting project is make a 16K ROM for the 1000 that gave it a lot of the basic of the spectrum.
That would be cool.
What do you think of? I guess you couldn't get around like the character set and stuff. That might be pretty hardwired at some level.
So Ryan, we can expect that by Monday.
By when? I don't know. You were breaking up there.
Are you going into a tunnel, Ryan? Yeah, you know,
I think you could go a long way though.
well, John Oliger and Fred Neckbauer. John Oliger designed an expansion board for the 1000 that has a 9918, a TI 9918 video chip. It's the same thing as in the TI computer. And then Fred wrote sort of extensions to BASIC that would address that thing, you know, let you do stuff. And I think it sat in the, you know, 8 to 16K window. But it wouldn't be too difficult, you know, to do that, except
I mean, you could just get rid of a lot of stuff, but there are still some of these hardwired things like the video, like the way the display works. But if you did the display differently, like, yeah, maybe you'd have to add like a little video system to replace the Z80 doing it itself, right? If you did that, could you then ignore a lot of the other limitations?
I don't see why. I mean, you know, yeah, it would take a fair bit of reprogramming of the ROM. I'm just trying to think what, you know, the ULA is the part that you kind of have to bypass.
I don't know.
And you don't have much more room on the keyboard to do more basic keywords. So.
Well, what if you put in a full-size keyboard, Joe? You know, and just you know, add some extra keys around the sides.
It's the same. It's the same 40 keys. Come on, you need a new overlay. I mean, that's how you do it.
Yeah, it's still 40 keys, right?
Right. And you just, you know, shift, function, hold the.
You just add another shift layer like they did.
Yeah, exactly. Another shift layer.
No, but I'm saying that like you'd actually almost could use the Spectrum layout. You're going to bring on a lot of as much of the Spectrum functionality as you could.
But do it in black and white, same level of graphics,
yeah,
or even higher res graphics, like 250.
Well, you'd have a way to address the high res probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a thought that, or really, it was a thought off of the point that I wanted to make, which was that a lot of what came to the Spectrum was just the extra 8K that they were able to add to the ROM. Yeah, you got a color circuit and a video chip, right?
Mhm.
But that does help too. But a lot of it was just the language, and well, the big help was the character set too. But you could potentially adopt that as well, I think.
Yeah. Right. Well, unfortunately, if you change the character set, if you move it into ASCII, then you're kind of boned, because then you can't load. You'd have to have some kind of translation layer for when you
Oh,
load.
I'm not talking about like making it backwards compatible.
Oh, okay. So
It's
similar.
more of a proof of concept in the sense that how much of the Spectrum was the 16K ROM versus the other bits, I guess maybe, which was
Mhm.
the point.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be you could probably more easily make it compatible with the Spectrum, right? Load Spectrum programs to some degree, but anyway,
Mhm.
I don't want to like set anybody off on a holy quest or something.
Well, in a side vein, Wilf Richter designed something that he called the ZX97, which is, and this was 90. He released it in 97, and it's meant to be this massively improved 81, I think, with onboard RAM and all sorts of other features. But I don't think it quite gets to the point of what you were thinking about, Ryan, which would be even further. Yeah, that'd be cool. Anyone else want to tell us why they decided that the 81 or the 1000 was their ideal first machine, or not ideal, but their first machine?
Well, I was also going to mention, Dave, just like you, yeah, I had to wait for it to drop to $100, and then I spent, that's the summer prior mowing lawns to get the money.
What? And did you already have a cassette recorder? Because that was a weird, thing. Like, I feel like we already had a cassette recorder.
Oh, it was well, I guess it depends on the household, but they were common. I don't remember specifically how I came into each one. I know there were several,
Yeah.
so they were probably garage sale acquisitions in some cases. Some would I would try to improve it or get better ones, or some would just get too old.
Yeah.
But those were not an uncommon thing back then, which is why they picked it.
Yeah, right. And they weren't terribly expensive. I mean,
it's not like you didn't have an Atari 410 or whatever the hell it was lying around. You had these things, and so it wasn't a big ask, I think, because you probably had one.
Yeah, and they were sort of ubiquitous. But go ahead, Tim.
I think, if I remember correctly, cassette player I got at Woolworth or Walgreens was like $20. It wasn't terribly expensive.
Yeah, and they were kind of ubiquitous for us because I vaguely recall them existing in the 70s, right?
Oh yeah.
And even further back than that, because I've seen some designs of I've seen some old cassette players, and I'm like, boy, that's clearly really old. Now, Ryan, how quick? Oh, I'll wait till you're back. But Joe, when you got your, hey, go ahead, Mike.
This is the one I used to use.
Yes, the Radio Shack. Was it the CCR?
I had no problems with.
Which one is that, Mike? Is that the 82 or something? CCR 82?
But that's a different one. This is the 82.
That's the 82. Okay, yeah.
CCR 81.
81. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, the 81's a bigger one. and then the 82 is this little
Oh,
guy.
nice. That's really nice.
Looks like I think they had an 81 that was this color as well, probably towards the end.
Did you pick that up at a garage sale or something, Ryan?
Yeah, and I had to change the belts on it. So I've been using that and just a little Walkman I borrowed from my dad. So
Yeah, blow on it. Make sure the heads are clear.
I was going to show you, some of the older things that you had back in the day.
Yeah. Oh my God. See, that's what I'm talking about. That kind of design that looks like the late 70s to me. An Ampex.
This is probably 70s, early 70s, I would think.
You carried it around, but then when you got there, you put it down.
Uh-huh. Does it have a pull-out handle, Ryan?
No, it's got a case with a
Oh,
carry
okay.
strap.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, a lot of them had the handles.
Jeff mentioned something in the chat that I can absolutely relate to, and that was you listen to the radio and have the speaker. I would do this. I would take the speakers and tent them over my tape recorder and have my finger on the on the pause button, waiting for the song I wanted to record. And then I would let it rip as soon as the song came on. Of course, the DJ always talked over it and ruined your mix for you.
So if everybody's showing off their recorders, I'm gonna.
Well, you've got one. Oh, that's the general.
This is the GE computer one, because I had an old, really old 1970s tape recorder that I started out with, and this was a gift a long time ago, and I've kept this thing running ever since. So this is the one that.
Now that looks very similar to the one that Ryan has, but with slightly different push buttons.
Right, it is, but it's the GE version.
Okay.
And they came out with one that's specifically for use with computers.
Yeah.
So with your whatever it is, so it kind of conditions the output to be more of a square wave, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it.
So it'd be great for new wave. Playing new wave through
it. Playing regular audio, it doesn't sound good out of this. So I know that.
Is it a fixed tone control or something?
No, it's adjustable volume and tone, and it has the remote on off.
Oh boy!
Handy for some of the
that was the thing, is that remote used to be pretty common, and then were going away, and the computer ones, would put it back because a lot of computers use that.
Yeah, the side of yours.
The nice thing about this, and probably the 81, is you can just flick a switch and hear and bring in the signal even with the ear plug in. So if you're just like, where am I on the tape, you could just put the monitor on and then hear where it is and get it set up without having to unplug the thing and having a very loud sound.
Interesting.
It's kind of a cool. The other one turns on and off the remote feature.
Wow, I like that. I'm going to go see if I can find one. Because why do you need more cassette players?
I found this modern one at a garage sale.
Yeah.
But I fixed it up, but it plays too slow. Something's wrong with it.
So I got one of those. Something similar to that. What's the brand on the back? What does it say?
This one's ONN.
Yeah, I had exactly that. I got it from I don't know, Amazon or Walmart or whatever, and I could not for the life of me get it to consistently play a tape that I could load into my 2068 or anything, and so I ended up showing at the door.
Yeah, I think there's a little pot of motor speed control.
Yeah.
On the board of those on and the cheap Chinese clone ones. Yeah, I've had a couple of them from time to time.
So maybe I'll have to find that. I thought I just.
There should be a little pot someplace. It's usually like when you open the back, you see the back side of the board, not the component side of the board, right? But there'll be a hole in the board, and you can shove a little screwdriver in there and give it a twist.
Okay.
And it's good to like go to another recorder and record like a 1K hertz tone, and then you that one and play it, and you can kind of even hear and get it close enough. You know, you're just listening to it, you can get it close enough. If you happen to have a scope, it's easy.
Cool. So, I'm gonna pick on Larry because Larry is also an 81 1000 person.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I started with the 81s because that was a cheap computer. I said, hey, I mean, I'm first. I was already about 30 years old. So, you know, not like a lot of you guys were, you know, still teenagers or young guys. So, but yeah, I've been playing with some projects. I've been trying to imitate Carl's project using his circuitry, some other circuitry. Not much success. Trying to, you know, access your 16K ROMs, you know, the EPROMs or double EPROMs. You know, I could play with a different combination of addressing and never had much success with it. And then my board I was working on just found it freezes the computer up now, so I don't know what's going on. It's just hand wired. It's nothing special. It's from an old extension board I had way back that I built back in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And then this is my board. And that decoding was you plug in here.
Yeah.
So I could put different kinds in it. But something happened. You put a chip in it, it won't work. Take the chip out, it works. It doesn't matter what chip you put in it. Or if one of those ZIF sockets, you lock it down, it'll freeze the computer up. Strange problem.
Just the ZIF socket alone will freeze the computer?
If you lock it down with no chip in it,
yeah,
or with a chip, it doesn't matter either way. I took the socket, ZIF socket out, still does the same thing with the chip in place in it. Because I got, you know, obviously got a socket in here. I got it wired for a 32-pin chip in case I want to go with the 01, see 101, whatever it is, the bigger chip.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't got that far yet. But
well,
anyway, having fun.
Larry, let me share my experience with you on that point. I assembled a one of Jeff's Pico video boards a while back and plugged it into the socket, and computer wouldn't even turn on. So I'm like, what's going on here? So I pull the thing out and I look at it carefully. Turns out I had soldered the RAM chip in backwards. So you know,
I hate stuff in direction. You know, the first sockets, and you know that when he can, that is.
Yeah. But,
yeah. Yeah, I'm using a little semi retro, I think it was. They made a little expansion board. I bought a number of years ago. I put some pin header plugs in so I could jump the pins real easily if I want to. But at least it'd be so nice if it was on a printed circuit board instead of all this wiring, you know, point-to-point wiring sucks, you know. Or breadboardings. Didn't have a lot of success doing breadboarding for some reason. I don't know why I couldn't get it to work. You know, we got those nice big breadboards. You know, here's my small version. I got a much bigger one.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, so I'll get it figured out. I usually do. It just takes me a while to back up. Nothing shorted. Nothing. You know, it doesn't make sense with it. Without a chip or ZIF socket locked down, it works. The computer boots right up.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I sent you a message last night or on the group IO about, you know, programs, because I had done something about a year ago and was able to cover some, and I pick it back up here recently, recovering tape programs that I had. And like this one I just did yesterday from Tape Financial from South St.
Oh, look at that. Cool.
And I got it. It had a weird, the waveform was like the last pulse would be thicker than the others, and the first pulse would be shorter. And so using, like I said, putting about Joe's find that rectivert program addition to Audacity, that really helpful.
So Larry, do you use 81, the emulator?
Yeah, I use, yes.
So one of the things that I've found with 81 is that you can load in a WAV file, and it has in essence it has two little player modules. One's a WAV module, and the other one's for, like, P files, right?
Right.
And when you load a WAV file in 81, if the volume wasn't enough and the peaks aren't high, there's one of the sliders lets you adjust the overall height of the waveforms, and then another slider lets you adjust which ones are sort of above the threshold that it will recognize. And it's really, really good at working with not great recordings.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And do you see that little cassette button that's at the top middle of the wave form window? If you have a tape in there, you hit that button, it just goes through it automatically and converts it into a TZX or something like that, and puts it in the yes.
Yeah, that, if the waveform's good enough, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what that other program I worked on asked for some help. It was a Java program, and it worked on a different approach than that tape utils, which I could never. I hated it. I didn't like that thing, trying to correct waveforms.
Mm-hmm.
It was confusing. Which one are you supposed to be doing? I kind of figured that out, sort of. Anyway, you know how it is. It's trial and error a lot of times. So you finally figure out, oh, maybe somebody else to give a hand. It's always, oh, there you go. That helps a little bit too. I'm trying the other one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right hand control brought that piece right on up. Huh. Interesting. Okay, that's pretty simple.
Yeah, 81 is really, really good at helping with not great recordings, and with a good recording, it's like boom, it'll just convert it super quick.
Right.
So I've been using that with when I digitize tapes for the 81 or 1000. And it's just amazing. I mean, the only thing it doesn't correct for is I don't know, what do we call it? Dropout, when the volume of the signal just sort of.
Yeah, you need to be able to go, like in Audacity, you can go and pump it up, wide it, select it and pump it up, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then use the envelope editor and stuff like that in Audacity. Yeah.
The reason I said that, because you mentioned I think the May 19th meeting, I watched all of the last couple of days. Doing other things, and you were talking about somebody asked you about programs. You said, "Yeah, I got a bunch of them I haven't done yet."
It's true.
Send some my way. Look like worthwhile working on. Are these commercial or stuff that people just typed in? Probably.
It's both. I mean, Larry, I am literally surrounded by cassettes on all sides.
Yeah, from all the
more coming.
More coming.
Yeah, more coming that are all kind of melted looking, but the spools still turn, so we'll see.
They probably be okay. Yeah, as long as it's turning, yeah. I mean, I said videotapes went through a hurricane we had here almost 20 years ago, and as long as it would turn, they usually were just fine. Because usually, especially all rewound all the way, then only that first area was, really had any salt ribs on it or anything.
What I found that has helped is to load a tape into an actual TS1000 and then save it within the TS1000 to a WAV file using Audiotron or whatever program you want, because the output from the 1000 was a lot better than what the tape decks of the they could record
Mhm.
because of the constant wavering and that. And once you do that, you get a nicely recorded wave file, which the 81 emulator will process very quickly. And also that Java program that was quite popular will convert that very nicely into a TZX or a .p file.
Cool. Well, I am still working on getting my 81 or 1000 rather, working, because I want to put it in that cradle that Jack and I both have, and use that as my main 1000 computer. And so yeah, I'll try that, David, with my tapes that are especially recalcitrant.
David, doesn't your
audio files?
I'm sorry. Oh,
do you normalize your audio files?
So with both the 1000 tapes and the 2068 tapes, I crank the audio up almost all the way out of the cassette player, and then in Audacity I crank the input volume up quite high. So yeah, I'm getting it as hot as I possibly can, Paul.
Well, the music software I use has a normalize option,
yep,
which will boost the softer parts up to a average the rest of the source.
You know, I've tried that, and with a tape that has you know, some really bad dropout, normalized doesn't quite get it there. Like you know,
Okay.
what I really need to do is run it through a full-on compressor to just squash the signal down to the same level no matter what. But you know, it's a question of needing a compression and makeup gain. I'm trying to remember what the it's not a leveler, but there's a thing for that, a word for that.
Compander, I think. Compander. Is that it?
A compander, yes. Yeah.
Never used one, but
Mhm.
just looking at one.
If I can find the old
something called a level devil.
a level devil, really? What was that?
Well, it was you ran your audio feed before it went into the transmitter through the level devil, and it had some mechanism in it that tried to do the normalized function for all the signal.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a separate box.
Interesting. How bizarre. There's a lot of things called level devil.
Driven.
Oh. I'm gonna pass on the tube drivens. I might, you know, go with the old who was that that made any parts? Anyway, there was a compander chip called a 570. Maybe I'll build a little compander circuit and see if that does anything for me. Hey Jack, you were gonna say something?
Didn't your cradle come with 64K?
Yes.
Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you put a 1000 or an 81 inside it.
That's correct.
Really?
That's correct. Yeah, the main issue is that I bought one of these composite video converter circuit boards for it, and I just need to solder that on, and then I can shove it inside and be happy. And then I need to
get a reset button too.
Yeah, right. External reset. Mm-hmm.
Reset the button's awesome.
Well, I think before you joined, Jack, we were talking a little bit about, you know, some of the things that you know, we learned to do early on with our computers, and one of the first things that I did with my 1000 was put a bigger heat sink in, and then I think the second thing I did was put in a reset switch. And considering that was my only computer, that was living on the edge.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you there, buddy. That was my only computer for, I don't know how many years, until I got a 2068, and that was well after Timex quit doing computers that I got a 2068.
So what did you do with your with your computer when you were doing things?
Played games mostly. Really. Mazogs, Red Alert, I can't remember all of them.
Okay.
But I tried a lot of the type in programs that came out in the magazine.
Yeah.
But as far as technical, I didn't do a lot. You guys are the technicians. Me, I would just there hanging on, playing games, and trying to collect stuff. I don't know.
Did you ever upgrade your keyboard in any way?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Besides the cradle, you mean?
Well, before you got the cradle, did you live the entire time before the cradle with the membrane keyboard?
Yeah, wasn't that exciting?
No, it was not.
But that was what I did, yes. And then I got a real computer. I got a 286. Man, I was flying high with that baby. Had a 2400 baud modem in it, and there was a couple of bulletin boards around the area where I live. And so I started logging into those and learning more and learning more and learning more. Then I got hooked up with Johnny Red. We both had similar interests, and I learned a lot from Johnny. I learned a lot, and all you guys, Paul Holmgren, I know that name. You sold software, didn't you?
And hardware.
And hardware.
Yeah.
So, Keith Watson, I know that name. Swenson, a lot of you guys. So, but I would just, like I said, just kind of hanging on the outskirts, trying to learn what I could.
Yeah, I hear you. So I'm gonna channel Adam right now and point out that we have a couple of new folks. Mowgli, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Mowgli, you were involved, I believe, in your local user group. But what I know you for is a program called Sektor 2068.
Yes, that was that was when I was 18.
Really?
And
Wow.
I wrote that in my mom's basement on my 2068 with the AERCO interface.
AERCO, wow.
So, yeah, because a friend of mine and I through high school had messed around with Apple IIs at the local library, and we had played with sector editing and messing with a bunch of, and like learned some 6502 there. And I had decided that I wanted to learn Z80, and I had decided that I needed a project for that. And so in playing with a sector editor for the Apple IIs, I was kind of like, well, I would like one for the AERCO disk. And so I kind of set about writing that. And that took me pretty much like the whole summer, if I remember right. And well, probably more than that. It took me quite a few months to finish it and to write the documentation. So then, I mean, the timing at this point, I'd have to go back and like look for sure, because I don't really remember where I ran across was it Rod something in Indianapolis?
You thinking of Rod Gowan?
No, he was in Oregon.
No, there was somebody in Indianapolis who sold a bunch of Timex Sinclair
Rod.
stuff.
Oh,
I thought
Yeah, what the heck
Rod
was his name?
Gowan Enterprises.
No,
No, that was in Oregon.
yeah,
Oh, that
Rod
was
was
in
in-
Oregon.
He's from Oregon, but he was in Indianapolis several times.
yeah. Oh, you know
Okay.
who was in Indianapolis was Paul Holmgren, who's here.
Oh, Paul was he? Well, Paul and I have at least had a brief discussion, but I didn't. Well, anyway, maybe I
It might
sold
have
it.
been at the fest.
But you did send your program to Rod, who put it in his listings, and
Yeah, so Rod actually sold it for me, and if I remember right, he sold it for $15, and I got $3 of that for each copy. So I eventually sold when I went back and counted, because he sent me like each month a check with an accounting for them, and I think I'd sold like a little over 80 copies of it.
oh my gosh, really?
So I made a whole $250 or so on that one.
Wow. Wow.
I got one copy.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, well, he sent me like the names and addresses of like everybody who had bought a copy. So in theory, I have where they lived at the time.
Yeah.
And I at least kept all of that paperwork when I was going through papers and stuff like that. So so that was, I mean, that was a fun experiment, and I got pretty good at Z80 code by the end of that. I was actually rather happy with my project and my experiment. And then college happened, and I got distracted by a whole bunch of other things. So, but and like at that point, my use of the Timex Sinclair dropped down a bit. Although I did still most of the time use RPM, AERCO's version of CPM, and at least one or two word processors on there. I wrote my college papers on my 2068. And I had the AERCO disk, and I had an Epson LX80 printer, tractor feed printer, that did all the printing. And I found, so the fun part is, like, I didn't realize it, but apparently I had actually written the manual for Sektor 2068 in AppleWorks on an Apple II.
Oh my gosh.
So, which is weird because I don't remember doing that. But I recently found the floppy that I have with that on it. So I at least have the manual in its original form, some version of the manual. I think there were several different versions of the manual that I wrote over time as I made updates and changes, but I at least have like the source for the manual somewhere. I still have my 2068 discs and stuff like that, but I haven't actually. I'm involved in a bunch of other things, and so it's been kind of difficult to get time to play with the 2068 and try and pull that stuff together. But yeah, so that was my experience writing Sektor 2068. And it was in Mom's basement because, like, Mom didn't believe in air conditioning. And it's Columbus. Columbus is kind of a heat bowl in the middle of Ohio. And so whenever they forecast temperatures for central Ohio, you can add 3 to 5 degrees for inside the outer belt here in Columbus, because it's basically an asphalt parking lot. So my mom's basement was the place where I could stay cool while working in the summer.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So do you still have your AERCO disk system?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
The power supply got messed with a few times and is not really I'm not sure I would trust it at this point. It was a little bit interesting to begin with because they kind of just slapped a power supply into kind of a pseudo metal cage and kind of glommed it onto the back of the box. So it was kind of an ad hoc thing for them, and like, you know, there are much better options for power supplies now. So I probably wouldn't use that power supply, but I still have at least one of the original drives that I used in it. And yeah, I mean, I've got all the boards and stuff, and all the stuff that I had originally. So
wow, that's awesome. Look, I'm really glad you know, found us and joined us, because you know, I've been archiving stuff for a long time, and you know, at some point I got a bunch of material from Rod's former business, and you know, one of the things was your program, right? And some documentation. Like, it wasn't from Jack, it was from someone else who had just boxes and boxes of Rod's files, literally his files. And so, you know, like, flip through and there's this, you know, this file folder, and, you know, for you expressly for, you know, Sektor 28, and, you know, I'm like, wow, you know, here's an obscure disk system. Of course, all disk systems for the Timex 2068 are obscure.
Yes.
But, you know, here's this, you know, reasonably obscure disk system, and somebody wrote a Sektor editor for it, you know. And I was like, wow, that you know, what possessed such a person to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, so the initial thing that we were doing with the Apple II stuff was we were playing with like cracked games. And so one of the things, like with the Apple II thing, what they really like to do is put a dead Sektor in the middle of a disk somewhere, and they'd have a read routine in the machine code. And if it did not find that Sektor as bad in whatever way they decided it, then it knew you were cheating and you had copied the disk. So one of the popular ways to get around this, that the Apple II crowd basically glommed onto, was you just go through with the Sektor editor, find the routine that actually does the read, and you know, either no-op it out or you jump out of it early so that it doesn't actually do the read, and so that it just returns an okay result. So this is where Sektor editors on the Apple II became very interesting and a lot of fun. And of course, like the professional cracking people, they like put their fancy screens up and did all sorts of other crap like that. We were just interested in playing the game and like learning about like how the stuff worked. And to be honest, like, we didn't distribute anything. We just did it for fun and to figure out like how they were doing the copy protection and how we could get around it. But that was where, and like, I mean, there wasn't really copy protection on the AERCO system. Like, they didn't, I'm not sure they even thought about it. I never saw anything that I could even qualify, you know, that would have prevented me from copying anything on the AERCO disk system. But for me, like I said, I was like, well, I need a project to learn Z80. And I liked playing around with disk systems, and I liked messing around with the sectors and seeing what was in the sectors and how they were organized and stuff. So that was what spawned the idea that, hey, that would be a good project for me. And then I think some of my friends were like, you know, hey, you should sell that. And I was kind of like, well, I have no idea how to do that. But then, like, I know I went to Indy at least once because I have the stuff from the second Indy Fest. I don't think I went to the first Indy Fest, or if I did, I wasn't paying enough attention to pick up either a program or a T-shirt or anything. But at the second Indy Fest, I still have my T-shirt from that. And So I don't know. I mean, I got my AERCO system, I think, because I met and talked to the guys from AERCO, and I think that was at the second Indie Fest that I met them and talked to them. I got very little sleep at that because we had, I think, like 5 people in our hotel room and 2 beds, and so most of us were sleeping on the floor. And I was also a teenager and kind of hepped up a lot at that point about the whole computer thing. So sleep was something that I didn't need until like Monday. And so I could do the whole weekend on like 2 or 3 hours of sleep back in those days.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think I have your manual, right? I have the manual for your program, and I'm trying to remember because I scanned it not too long ago.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. You in your manual, you have an appendix that talks about the anatomy of the AERCO disc.
Yes.
And so in
By the way, I remember none of that.
That's fine. No, that's fine. No, what I was just going to relay is that I was really, really glad to find this because I've had, I have something similar for the Oliger and for the Larkin, and I was able to use a grease weasel to, get an image of those discs in a format that I can futz around with on my computer, and I wrote Python program that would take that image file and then read the directory and spit out, whatever was on there as tap files. But I didn't have that information about the AERCO. I could see the directory. Like I imaged a couple AERCO disks and I brought them up on a hex editor, and I could see the directory, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. I didn't want to.
Yes.
There's so much reverse engineering effort. And so, I was like scanning your document and I saw this appendix. I was like, yes, now I could write the parser for the AERCO.
David?
Yeah.
Hi. I really impressive with this meeting because I never thinking that talk with the real developer for AERCO, because in my days I have another disk interface was AERCO. This was my first disk system for the Timex. And on using the AERCO, I expand to 256K in memory because the standard is 64. And also then when the AERCO create the RPM disk, I moved to the CPM, and really, really great. I remember the release ROM number 9 is the version I have on my board.
Wow.
Yes, and really, really fast. It's 1K per sector, the AERCO, to save. Yeah, really, really very speed read, and also the Western Digital Controller read multiple format, multiple sizes. When I need to copy a disk at the low level, I use the AERCO interface because it's better than the FDD3, because FDD3 has a low cost chip is 1770, but the AERCO has a really, really good chip on board.
So Mowgli, I don't know if you heard about this back then, but a bunch of 2068s ended up in Argentina. When Timex
okay.
left us, in February of '84, at some point after that, a ton of 2068s ended up in Argentina, which was where Gustavo is. And so he got on the Timex bandwagon. And Gustavo has been. When did you get your computer, Gustavo? Was it 84?
84, January 84.
Okay. So the rumor that I've read in the newsletters is that they just sort of dumped everything there, you know.
Well, they had to dump it somewhere.
They had to dump it somewhere, exactly.
No, yes, and also I remember those days in Argentina because we never received a computer faster than the 2068, but we don't know that the Timex closed the computer section because normally we have a delay 6 months or 9 months. But in this specific case, when I see on the newspaper, then 2 months later, I received the computer in Buenos Aires. That is impressive, the speed.
Speedy.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And so, you know, Gustavo's been, you know, programming the 2068, you know, for that long, and especially in Z80, he's done a lot of really interesting things. And so, you know, as an AERCO owner, you know, you had the advantage that a bunch of us didn't have. Of, you know, the bunch of us were still stuck with tape, you know, cassette tape machines, right? And there were not a lot of AERCO systems sold. There were not a lot of Oliger systems sold, or Larkin systems.
Well, there were at least probably 80 AERCO systems sold.
Yeah. No,
by my count.
I think that a guy named Bill Jones did a little survey with a newsletter that he was publishing in the late 80s or in early 90s, and I think there were, you know, a few hundred AERCO systems sold.
Okay.
And you know, that we have on our meeting today 2 AERCO owners, or 3 actually, so Gustavo, 3 people use it who have, you know, either owned or currently own an AERCO system is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody else's. So I usually go to VCF Midwest regularly.
Okay.
And I'm actually one of the people who helps in the auction at this point. And there's, in those displays, I still have yet to see an AERCO interface. And there's one guy, and I've forgotten his name, who shows up and has a collection of pretty much all of the Sinclair named stuff and a few of the Spectrums as well. And he puts together like a big display on a table with all of the different models and things like that. And he and I have talked before about like him basically borrowing the AERCO to display it on the table with the rest of his stuff, because he doesn't have one of those. And so, yeah, I mean, I imagine it's a relatively rare thing to find. And I imagine there weren't a lot of those made, which is too bad, because I'll be honest with you, like I had a lot of fun with it. And I thought it was a pretty nifty little disk system for the computer at the time, especially given Timex, you know, / Sinclair didn't really seem interested in going in that direction with their own stuff for the most part. So I was always happy with mine, and I really enjoyed playing with it back in the day.
And well, in 1980, 81, while they were designing, floppies were expensive as snot, and the emphasis was on cheap.
Yes, right. Well, I mean, so to be fair, the Timex was supposed to be a cheap machine. And so the first Timex the first computer that I actually owned, my mom had originally bought a TRS-80 Model 1 with an expansion interface. And the important part actually in that was she had the Omicron mapper in it. This was an original version of an Omicron mapper where you had to actually open the interface. You had to take 2 clips and you had to clip the Omicron mapper onto the board on a certain chip so that it would interrupt the normal boot cycle of the TRS-80. When you did that, you could run CPM on the Model 1. And so that was actually where I first learned about CPM, was with the Model 1. Then my mom got an Apple IIc, which was entertaining, but a little bit on the boring side. But of course, both of these systems had floppies. So by that point, I was kind of like, I was aware of the cassette concept. But then when I bought my Timex Sinclair 1000, the first computer that I personally owned and bought with my paper route money, then I got to deal with the cassette interface to some extent for the first time. And that was kind of like, okay, well, it's cool because, hey, I can run a flight simulator in 2K. I can't land the plane. I have to crash it when I'm done. But it's still kind of fun to just fly around in 2K with very large blocks on the screen. And it was just kind of like a cool concept to me, especially as a, at that point, I was probably closer to like 15 or 16. As a kid, it was like, this is cool. So then I went to the 2068 and, you know, again, we had the cassette interface. There were cartridges, but I didn't actually own that many cartridges. So I actually live in the town where Micro Center started, for those of you who are familiar with Micro Center here in the United States. Yes, the first Micro Center was basically within biking distance of my house. And ironically, I bought my Timex Sinclair 1000 from a store that specialized in records and needles that was on the same block as the Micro Center in the shopping center, but I bought most of my software at the Micro Center. So anyway, so early playing with disk systems and playing with CP/M kind of encouraged me that when the Timex Sinclair came along, I wanted a disk system. And I think it was the second Timex Fest where I ran into the AERCO guys, and I thought that was really cool. They showed their thing off, and they talked about that it could run CP/M, RPM basically, and I was like, okay, this is what I want. And I think it took me another 2 years to buy it. I have the receipts actually. I kept those receipts too. But yeah, so that's what spawned the whole, like, get the disk system and things like that for the 2068.
David, can we put in safe place the original discs of the AERCO, just only to preserve the disc?
Yeah, so Dave, I was going to ask, like, have you tried taking RPM disks and using PC software like 22 disk and other things with it?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I do have an RPM disk among the AERCO disks I have. I remember seeing that one.
Okay.
I sent you one too.
Okay. That came from Paul then.
Now, if you got RMG stuff, did you get like any of the original copies of Sektor 2068? You said you had the manual.
I do, yeah.
But...
off the top of my head, I don't recall.
Okay.
It either came from it. If I do, it's in a box full of discs that Jack sent me. There's a big box of discs that Jack sent that I need to look through, and there are a bunch of Rod's master discs. I have seen a few master discs in there from Rod. So maybe the answer is maybe.
Okay. I mean, I may have a copy or two. I don't know what I have. I mean, I kept most of my software. Whether it's still good or not is a fun question. Although most of that stuff stayed with me and never wound up in storage. So it's got a better chance, definitely, of still being good. And like I said, the Apple II discs that I pulled out from my high school days were still fine and had a copy of the manual on it somewhere. So I would expect my Timex Sinclair discs are also still reasonably good shape.
That's, to me, that's the most surprising thing is that, when I first started digitizing the tapes and when I started, you know, digitizing the discs, like I got a bunch of discs from that had belonged to Bob Swoger in Chicago, and apparently they had been stored in his attic for who knows how long, right? And they got pulled down, and one of Bob's friends sent them to me. I had no expectation that any of these things would be any good, and the vast majority of them just fine. The vast majority of the cassettes that I have received from folks just fine. It's really, really bizarre. I mean, it helps that people would rewind. The cassettes where they did not rewind, where it's just like, left in the middle for 35 years, those do suffer a little bit.
It is interesting to preserve all the discs, because in disk we have more robust storage, and also the FDD3 or FDD3000 also, not just only the AERCO. Or we unfortunately we not receive all the software here in Argentina, but the lot of copy I have of that, but it's not complete. It's very, I know that in different places receive many programs, but it's not in my country case, of course.
Yeah.
Because
David, I think that a lot of these, a lot about the perception that we have that these tapes are potentially going to fall to dust as soon as we touch them just comes from all these people. I saw this when I was trying to delve into get the old reel-to-reel stuff going, is that it was all the worst case scenarios would be the first thing out of somebody's mouth. The war story of the worst possible tape. And so then you get this perception that anything 40 years old is just going to turn to dust when you touch it, or goo, whichever. And it's just not the case, as you saw.
Yeah. So Ryan, you have a reel-to-reel, which I admire every once in a while when the camera angle swings over there. And I used to have a really nice reel-to-reel a long time ago. And that was like in the late 80s. So the tapes were only, 10 to 15 years old at that time. But yeah, so your experience with the reel-to-reel has been that those things have been mostly okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I mean, at least for what I have, and these things were not stored the best. I mean, sure, my LP collection, that's kind of pretty warpy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, but these tapes, I mean, the worst I had was like, a couple of them would just break every few feet. Probably near the beginning, where they were more exposed. But none of this super horrific stuff. The recorder I happened to buy was for nothing at a local garage sale, and the rollers felt fine. They'd shrunk. They weren't goo. They weren't hard as a rock. So I put these small wide rubber bands around them.
Oh, okay.
Increase their size.
Yeah.
And I could maybe send them off to a guy who will redo them. But the tapes, I mean, had issues. The player's not, really great. It's not perfectly restored. But once I sort of got them going, play through, get them off the reel, because they're not all, what you call it, the layers are all uneven.
Oh.
Knock the dust off and all that. It was fine.
Okay.
And so I think the cassettes, unless the shell or the felt thing obviously has a problem or something, unless it's just the original recording. I mean, if you remember that user group tape, my notes, the recovery of those programs followed my notes. It's like, it was just a bad recording to begin with, way back when. And so when you look at the WAV file, it's like, yep, you can see the terrible recording.
So the worst, like you were saying, the worst thing that I have experienced in terms of tapes is that the felt fell off. And, I just take some tweezers,
Yeah.
a little spot of glue and glue it back on. And,
Right.
And that survived, that restored it long enough for me to get get whatever's on the tape off of it. Yeah.
And I've seen this in so many areas, what was I going to say? Where the old timers just give you the worst case scenario to dismiss it.
Yeah.
And the cassette recorders. Yeah, okay. Sometimes when I was restoring a lot of old stereo equipment, it was kind of like, oh yeah, what was primarily wrong with these things that supposedly, oh, you're going to replace all the belts. Well, okay, yeah, I could have, but it still was working. It was these other plastic parts that had gone weird.
Yeah.
And stuff. And what was the one you just mentioned before? It wasn't, oh no, somebody else. It was like replace all the caps, and that was exactly not it. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of like assumption that like, oh, you should just replace all the caps when you get a computer from like 30 or 40 years old. And most of the time that's a fair amount of work and won't really get you the result that you need. We found that it's much better to look at them a little bit more analytically. And now if there are a bunch of tantalum caps, we have found that they were really chimpy on the tantalum caps and underpowered them. And those will do really, really creative and interesting things when you power them these days. We've had both flame and explosion out of tantalum caps from things. But aside from those tantalums, like we've rarely run across something where like you would recap the whole machine. Most of the times there's some evidence that a capacitor has died in some particular spot that you might need to look at and replace. But like the whole, like recap the whole machine is kind of like, okay, you're just shooting a shotgun at it and hoping that you hit something at that point. The biggest problem that we found is the rubber that they used for everything. At this point, as he said, it goes one of two ways. It has either turned to goo or it turns into a solid rock. The ones that turn to goo are really the problem, because usually it's turning into its dinosaur ancestors and trying to get that out of some of the spaces, like if it's a roller or something like that that is starting to turn to goo and has dumped some goo inside, you can have a bitch of a time getting like that stuff out of the machine, even with cleaners and stuff like that.
I worked on a cassette tape for David, but he's not here. David Solly, I worked on his cassette player, and the belts had gone, right? And the belts had turned to like goo and just straight up carbon. And that was a unholy mess.
About this.
Oh
See
dear.
that?
Oh, wow.
But still good there.
Yeah.
And the spool still turn.
Well,
that
part's actually kind of irrelevant because you can just take the tape out of that, put
That's
it in a
what I was
body
thinking.
that's basically good, and
get you a nice
Well, I've got
cassette body with screws on it.
Yeah.
a whole bunch of them like this.
Yeah.
And melted on the end or the edge, but the spool still turn. And it's like, it amazes me.
Heat will demagnetize.
Oh, that's a good point.
It will, yeah. But anyway, I don't have the necessary equipment or know-how to do it, but I was thinking like you were saying, taking them out, put them in another case.
They used to make some tape cassette, with screws. like Ryan is showing you, the screw holes, which
Yeah.
they disassemble
Well,
very
these-
nicely.
These have screws in them too.
Well, then you're halfway home.
Yeah. I have, as you might imagine, I have a lot of cassette tapes, which, you know, can work as donor bodies.
Well, and you know, there was some of these that was just like, a block about this long, all melted together. And they all got tossed. I can't believe how many cassettes I tossed. And I still got quite a few.
Yeah.
It looks like it says that the melting point of that case plastic was a lot lower.
Well, in some places, because during the fire, it started on one side of my shop and burned towards the other side. And that's where these things were, on the last side. By that time, the fire department was in there squirting water on everything. So some of these didn't get so bad, but some of them did. You know, it just freaking sucks, I'll tell you. Lost so much stuff.
Yeah.
They've done that.
Water is probably less of a concern for those sorts of things, since in a tape, water is not going to overly affect that. The heat
I'm not
may
worried
have
about
affected
that.
it, but you know, won't know until you try and actually pull the data off.
I recovered two. These are for the 1510.
Yeah, there's a cartridge. Yep.
And they were 20 feet behind the building. So my thinking was, when they were squirting water in, they blew them out the other side. I don't know.
Yeah, that
But
makes
this
sense.
these were the only ones for the 1510 I found, and I didn't find anything for the 2068. And I had all of them. So I guess they all burned or melted or something. I had a 1959 El Camino that I was building. It had been did a frame off, painted, and then had all the stuff I was doing the interior. And I had all the trim for the side. It's all aluminum. So guess what happened to all that stuff? It was just in puddles like this.
Yeah.
About that thick. It's just like, oh my God, you know. Anyway, that's enough of my sad stuff. I just wanted to show a couple of these things where the spools turn, but there's no way you can stick it in a cassette player. And I don't have one anyway because they all got burned up.
Well, and Jack, one of the things that you sent me was a little plastic bag full of these York. I don't know if you guys remember the York blank cassette company. So I have at least 4, blank cassette, never used, cassettes that I can transfer those things into and just keep reusing it until I get the stuff, get the stuff off, or just build a mini reel to reel, huh?
There you go.
I don't know, man.
I got a 3D printer. I can do such a thing now.
Well, you could just take a cassette player and it's not the one that captures the cassette. It just has a lid that pops up. You take the lid off. You could just set the reels in there and spool it.
Yeah, isn't there
maybe?
I think it'd be like a little height issue or something, but maybe it would work. Yeah, it'd be worth trying. So,
that's true.
Well, the reason I was mentioning the Argentinian connection is that Gustavo is one of 2 folks in Argentina who are responsible for this modern SD card interface for the 2068.
So which one? Because I just bought one from some guy in Poland.
From some guy in Poland.
Lotharek?
The Xeric?
Oh yeah, I wonder what you bought from Lotharek for the 2068.
Yes, I think it's a DVIDE or something like that.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's for the Spectrum.
Or okay,
the Div IDE. Yep. And there's also
careful there.
That's a div. There's also a div MMC, but same basic thing. That's a really nifty device for the Spectrum. I mean, one of the things that is really cool about that is that you can write your own commands and just add them in. And so I don't recall if like, you know, .ls is one of the core commands or if it's a command somebody else wrote. But there's all these, you know, dot commands available for the div IDE and the div MMC. But that's a closed, the software, the ESX DOS for that is a closed system, unfortunately.
Don't forget
Okay.
Twister.
We launched the TS Pico. Ricardo created the initial version of the hardware, and I put on the public domain my version of the operating system, the TPI commands, and also was included on the first release of the board. And that's that David mentioned. This is a very advanced system to send commands at the Pico, and you can also configure or use save, load, verify, and merge from SD card. And it's easy, it's robust, and have a big opportunity to increase the operational mode of the Timex 2068. That is the point. Is very different to divide or another interfaces in the world.
So without the Argentinians, we'd still be slaving away with tapes.
Oh yeah, no, correct, no, correct. No, we're thinking on disk, or we're thinking in different storage, hard drive, and also the last work on the 80s was a clone of the AERCO system in Argentina, and they create a board, a PCB, and then build not many systems, but some systems for the AERCO original circuit, but made in Argentina for the local market.
Yeah, that part's bizarre to me. That they
Okay, well, so wait, so you created, you basically built aftermarket AERCO disk interfaces, the FD68s?
Yes, the PCB was made locally.
Okay.
And they put the chip, no me, but a company in Argentina, right? They created some system for the AERCO, and also another system adapted for the 2068 was the Plus D.
Oh, system. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Exists a local version of the Plus D for the Timex 2068.
So did they rewrite the operating system for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I not use, but I use the FDD. But many people use the Plus D system adapted to the AERCO. Sorry, so to the 2068.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because it's simple, it's small. Yeah.
So do we know what happened to AERCO and their intellectual property?
Well,
Jerry? On those years in Argentina does not exist the intellectual properties.
Yeah, I'm that's fine. I'm just saying for the rest of us, there's an interesting question. I mean, because if on some level, if like the AERCO stuff has no one has taken that over, then it would be possible perhaps for one of us to take it over, and then like you could sell the AERCO disk interface again, maybe with a modified version that deals with a flash card or compact flash card or something like that, rather than as a straight disk interface. And you could start doing interesting hybrid things where you could literally just take floppies and copy them directly to a flash image or something like that. I mean, that again, you could do it as a one-off thing down there because you aren't necessarily subject to the intellectual property rules. But it would be really nice if in the United States we could clarify it and maybe come up with some way to do that.
Yes, I remember those days. The software is the most I don't know, valuable part of the system, they sell copy in every store in Argentina that was open. You have a computer store and you say all the copy in white cassettes with the photocopy of the original cover.
Oh, so the fun part is that AERCO actually sent out copies of their of the ROM source code with the disk interface. So like I have a copy of their ROM dump, at least.
I assume that was a copy in binary. I don't know if the company create the board has the source code. Maybe copy the ROM, the EEPROM directly.
Okay.
No need the source code.
Hey Keith, you trying to?
Yeah, they did sell the source code for $20. I bought it, but I think that was version 8.8. My first one was an 8.8. I graduated to 8.9. Eventually, I got the last one they produced was 9. My own versions of it are up to 10.7, but those are all my modifications to it. I don't use the RAM resident code in mine, so I could make it compatible with the Spectrum system as well.
Oh, do you know the AERCO CX interface or whatever?
No.
No?
I know there's 3 versions of the AERCO interface. There's the 64K version, and there's 2 versions of the 4 drive versions. I should say that they have the 256K, and one is a 2-drive system, the other is a 4-drive system. They use different ports.
Oh, okay.
I talked to Jerry and Till from AERCO a lot when they were still working, and the last time I talked to him, he said he had about 50 blank AERCO interface discs cards left, and that was it. And he wasn't building it anymore. They got involved in making RAM discs for other computers.
No, I buy the original 64K version of the AERCO and then modify and upgrade the chips, the memory RAM. And my version has 256.
Right.
Is that a 2-drive version or a 4-drive?
Yes, exactly. 4-drive.
I have the original 2-drive version.
Wow.
Yeah, the 2-drive version uses different ports because I had the 2-drive version of the 256 first, and then I went to the 4-drive version, and they got different ports.
And also, I remember to modify the monitor output because the sync is not so good. I need to put some capacitor and resistor to adapt the TTL monitor driver and use the RGB output from the AERCO interface too.
So
ever since I got the AERCO, I had an RGB. I couldn't go back to anything else. The other video was too bad.
No, yeah.
I was a software guy, so I didn't make any hardware modifications.
Mowgli, to answer your question in part, Jerry passed away in 2021. But before he did, he in the, I don't know for how long, but for a number of years before that, he was building microphone preamps that people would use to go and record like Grateful Dead shows with. I guess some sort of special kind of portable microphone preamp, and then also some bizarre musical instrument that there's some videos on YouTube for that. But you may remember this, that the schematics, when you bought the thing, the schematic was part of the manual for the like the 2068. The real challenge would be finding those disk controller chips because they've been made in decades, unfortunately.
No, that is important part of the history maybe, because to put in the public site all the software plus information is really important, because in the case you lost many items from the fire, and in my case I lost many items for stolen. Yeah, many people entered to my garage and was cleaning. Okay, I lost many computers and also software cartridge or whatever. list, program listing. That is very important to put in a safe place, especially this image or the ROMs or whatever.
Mhm.
That is the good point for David to start with this point for us, for the community. And also thank you, David, for your hard job on that.
Well, and now that I have Mowgli's manual, I can decode the discs. Keith?
Just a question. When I used to call there and ask for technical information, one of them was supply the technical information. The other one would always refer me to the other one. Which one was the one? I don't remember. I remember Jerry and Till, but I don't remember which one I was getting technical information from.
That's funny. Mowgli and Gustavo, I just put the link to all of the documents that I have scanned so far related to AERCO. So there's, your manual, for instance, Mowgli is in there, and the disk drive system manual and stuff like that. So
great. We need to complete maybe the CPM version of the programs, because we are not have a full info, especially for the CPM of the FDD 3000. In Argentina, we don't have more of those systems, but it's important to collect all the items worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jack, I know you put it in the chat, and I see that Paul asked you about sending that list to the groups.io list. Send an email out to the entire list, because the chat's not going to get preserved.
Okay.
Yeah, and then folks will probably respond to you, because I'm sure there's somebody who wants a monochrome monitor.
Very complete. Oh wow! Thank you for scanning.
Yeah, there's more. I feel like I have more sitting around, and I just haven't gotten there, but I'll get there. It's I've spent a bunch of this weekend just working on cassette tapes.
Okay, David, you want me to send this kind of cassette to you?
Yeah. Okay. Because a lot of what you sent me, Jack, had a bunch of things that I sort of like vaguely knew about, I'd heard about, but never saw, or just totally new things. And actually Tim sent me a couple cassettes a while back, and one was for this spreadsheet that Banta software put out for the 1000 and the 2068, but the other was for this program called Data File from a software company where I knew about two of their releases. I've got it on my website. For one of the programs is called Musicola, and the other program was called Graphist. Well, there's this cassette, from Tim, totally new program, and same thing for stuff that I got, from you, Jack, is totally new stuff that I've, seen no reference to anywhere in the magazines or the newsletters or whatever. I'm up to about 600 or 700 like individual programs that I've archived on archive.org, and I don't know, 40 some odd diskettes from Bob Swoger. They were Larkin or Oliger. Oh, Larkin discs, yes, because it's so yeah, I mean, just all kinds of stuff. That's cool. I get to load up this little program that somebody wrote and see what it does.
David,
yeah,
what are you thinking to create a conversion program?
Conversion?
To extract, yes. The idea is to extract, for example, if you put many disks on Oliger or a different format, to convert the information of those programs to just a standard tab file or another format.
Yep.
To use with a different system, for example, our TS Pico.
Right, exactly. So I've done that. I'm able to image a Larkin disk or an Oliger disk and get sort of a straight binary file from it. And then I have a Python program that can read the directory of that disk and spit out all the programs that are on that disk as tap files. Problem with, especially with the Larkin disks that I received from Bob Swoger, is that he went into every one of those programs and sort of Larkinized them, which means that they have commands specific to the Larkin operating system that if you try to run that program on your 2068, one of the first things that'll happen is it'll just reset because it does this user call to address 100, and that causes the computer to reset. So they're out there, but we need to go through them one by one and remove all these Larkin specific commands to make them work.
Is David, is it just a removal, or is there any sort of translation you have to
do? If you just take out the Larkin commands, if like 98% of the programs, that works just fine, because it's just trying to save files to the disk or load an additional file from the disk, like you've been working on, Ryan, where there'll be a loader that loads a screen that loads the subsequent program. Same thing exists, except it's a loader that has a Larkin specific command in it that causes.
Okay, so you might have to remove a command, calling in a memory, and then translate the load command or whatever.
Just undo the there's a rand or print number 4. You just take that thing out, and that's all.
Sounds like something that we could write a program to filter.
I thought about
David,
that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, remember that I don't know if Ricardo implement this feature, but on the TPI command we can restart at the end of the tab file, go to the beginning automatically.
Yes.
This can be used in case that you need to load a specific program inside the tab file.
Yes. Yes.
That is, this is the reason to do that is to emulate a disk.
Yeah.
In a big type.
Yeah.
Tab file, and also you can load any specific name program without problem in a big tab file, contain all the programs inside the disk.
Yeah.
That's only to remember this as a comment.
Yeah. Brian, I've had your thought, and I started to go down that path, and then I realized that there's a whole bunch of checksumming that has to be changed. And
Sure.
and at that point I was like, I don't feel like doing this.
Well, no, we can just, that's not a big deal. We just modify the block, and you have a routine that does that for you. And
yes.
I don't think that's going to be hard. Remember, well, it wasn't a tap file thing. I wrote a thing that takes a P file, spits out a Spectrum version.
Yeah.
So
famous last words.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about that, and
but now I have to be Adam.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
Point the clock.
It's almost 4 o'clock. That's right. And so because Father's Day fell on our ordinary Sunday meeting date, that's why we're meeting today. Usually it's the 3rd Sunday of the month, and then in theory there'd be another 2 weeks before we meet again. But no, this month we're going to meet on the first Monday of the month, which happens to be July 1st, which is 8 days from now. So next meeting is Monday, July 1st, 9 p.m. Eastern. I will send out a meeting reminder middle of this week. And we'll see you there. And Ryan, I may take you up on your your thought process there with those Larkin files. Yeah. Any last words?
Okay.
Any last thoughts from anybody? Mowgli, thank you for finding us. Thank you for joining us. Please come back. We love having new people.
Thank you, David. Thank you all.
Yeah, I'll try and make it.
Okay.
And yeah, thanks for archiving everything. It's definitely cool.
Yeah. Well, I
I'll-
appreciate that you told me how the file is mapped, or the disk is mapped.
Yeah, no, I'll see what else I can dig up and see if I can help you along the way.
Awesome.
We'll see as we go.
Thank you.
So
Cool.
all right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.